Welcome back, everybody. I'm the Spoony Bard, and you're watching my official review of Resident Evil 7. Let's go ahead and get started. Resident Evil 7 is a very good game. Let's just get that right out of the way and say that Capcom has nailed it this time around. Listening to fan feedback from 5 and 6, Capcom has returned to their roots and given us a true survival horror game that fans have wanted for a very long time. If you're sitting on the fence with the game, that's really just it. Resident Evil 7 is hands down a return to roots survival horror Resident Evil. No more of this action bullshit, no more of these quick time events. It really feels the way that a Resident Evil game should, set in modern day consoles. Now let's talk a little bit about the demo in the first person perspective really quickly. So when they announced Resident Evil 7, they gave us that demo. It really didn't feel like a Resident Evil game at all. It gave us an idea of what the gameplay was going to be like, things like that, but in a lot of ways the demo was a bit off-putting. And this whole transition into first person, it felt more or less like a Outlast / PT teaser, and it didn't combine anything in a good way. So we're all just kind of sitting on the fence, waiting for it. Reviews start dropping, and everyone's like, holy shit, this is actually a really good game. And that brings us to today. Its first-person perspective, you really don't notice it when going through the game, because it blends the environment so well. It blends in with the environment so well. It adds that creep factor. It adds that feeling of intensity. And I think the game could have been third or first person either way, and it really wouldn't have detracted from it, but that first person definitely adds to that intense environment. And this is where Resident Evil shines. Resident Evil 7 actually is scary this time around. It's not like Resident Evil 5 where we throw in a few jump scares and have some asshole with a chainsaw running after you. The game really tries to step it up and give us that scare factor that past Resident Evils had. And this is something I have not felt in 5 or 6. So it was nice to be able to see Capcom really capture that and give us a true-to-form Resident Evil. With that being said, Jack Baker is absolutely terrifying. You think you're safe from, all of a sudden this bastard comes through the door with his axe or whatever other gardening tool he can get his hands on and starts chasing after you. And it makes for some outright terrifying moments, simply because you could be minding your own business, reading through an article, and all of a sudden you got Jack on your ass coming after you. This happened to me multiple times. I also wasted a lot of ammunition at the beginning on Jack, and because of that I made some areas a little bit more difficult than what they needed to be. But that's another thing that Resident Evil 7 does right, is it encourages you to conserve your ammo. Use ammo only when you need it. Use that ammunition wisely. Maybe knock an enemy down and run past them, or save up your ammunition for when you're being swarmed by 2 or 3 things and there's just no way in hell you can get out of this room. Which has happened to me before with no ammunition. So conserving ammunition is key to any survival horror game, and Resident Evil does it beautifully. The other thing Resident Evil 7 did that I really enjoyed was inventory management. And with Resident Evil, even with Resident Evil 4, I felt like you had too much room to manage. It didn't really matter. But in 1 and 2, inventory space matters. And in number 7, it matters. There's times I'm sitting there, I'm playing the game like, oh gosh, oh shit, I want to hang on to this item, but I need to get rid of it. I need to make more room for this. Or there's times where you come across a potion, you're like, damn it, I don't have enough room in my inventory. Okay, let's remember the spot and come back. Backtracking, inventory management, this is all something that feels familiar to Resident Evil fans, and it's a welcome entry. You're going to be able to find ways to increase your inventory, but even towards the end of the game, you really feel like you're pushing your limits of what you can carry. So it encourages that very, very heavily. It also, true and true, returns to Resident Evil style puzzles. I'm not talking about just like throwing a few in here and there. There's certain things you have to do, like acquire certain keys. One of the first things you're going to do in the game is you're going to have to escape the house. And in order to do so, you have to get these 3 little dog heads spread all over the house, and it's your job to try to find them. So this, of course, is something else you're going to have to contend with, on top of running from enemies, on top of running from Jack. And it's nice to see the game return to these puzzles. There's, of course, more. I'm not going to go in and spoil every single puzzle for you. But it even does have that return to, you need certain keys to open certain doors. So you'll see like a scorpion door, a crow's door, or a snake door. And you have to have each of those keys in order to open each of those doors. So it's definitely a nice nod back to Resident Evil, and in a lot of ways encourages you to go back and re-explore certain areas that you may have not been able to before. Let's talk a little bit about its enemies. So, it's normal enemies. Capcom could have given themselves more time to come up with a little bit different design. I mean, the enemies are pretty generic. They are what they call molded. But you've got a regular molded, which just kind of like slashes and attacks you. Easily enough to evade. You got a hunter one, like a stronger one, that does more damage. And then you've got the lickers. Or, that's what I like to call them. They're not really true form lickers, but they move fast like them. They're a pain in the ass to take down. I'm calling them a licker. Then they've also got these fat molds. That's literally what the game calls them, is fat molds. And they will spew out this vomit that does like a shit ton of damage to you. You're going to want to try and avoid that. And they're a pain in the ass to take down as well. Let's talk a little bit about Resident Evil 7's characters and its story. I can tell you now, Resident Evil 7's story is very good. I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'm not really going to go into detail what happens, but a lot of its story is going to be wrapped around in different documents. And of course, it's going to kind of explain things. You're going to catch on to a lot of this before the big reveal's made about what's going on, just through notes left through the family, through some other people, through news reports. Resident Evil 7 is one of those environments you very heavily want to explore, because there's going to be little nods to the series, there's going to be little nods to certain characters from the series, there's going to be nods to things that took place within the game, and it all adds, of course, to the story, to what we see. Its characters, while not groundbreaking, don't really stand out in any way. They didn't really do anything for me, but they really didn't irritate me either. They more or less just kind of fill place there to go on to the narrative. What I will say is this, though. The story, as much as it tries to focus on the main character, he's more or less just there. The story really focuses around the Baker plantation, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But Resident Evil 7 was not a disappointment. It was a very welcome return to Resident Evil. And Capcom seems to really have figured out where Resident Evil needs to be in the modern day, while still retaining a lot of what made Resident Evil so popular back in the PlayStation. I'm very curious to see where Capcom can go from here. I really hope that Capcom can continue on this trend of creating scary things, creating a game like this, because if they were able to pull this off with this, I really feel like they could do something extraordinary with Resident Evil 8, if that's something that they choose to do. This more or less feels like a reboot of the series than anything, even though it does play into the lore of Resident Evil. You guys have been watching my official review of Resident Evil 7. Go ahead and leave in the comments below what you guys thought of Resident Evil 7. Was Resident Evil 7 an experience that you guys enjoyed? Was it an experience that you guys have yet to play? What were your thoughts about Resident Evil 7? I said leave those down below. Be sure to hit subscribe there for me. New content will come your way, and most importantly, stay happy, be happy, and game happy. The Spoony Bard is checking out.